Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jing Zhang from Tsinghua University, and now I will present our work. The title is Panther Fast Top K Similarity Search on Large Networks. And this work is collaborated by both Tsinghua University and Arizona State University. And first of all, I would like to show you two examples to motivate our work. This is a co-author network from the scientific network field, and I want to ask you a question. Please say that famous researcher Berbasi is denoted by a green color node, and I want to ask a question. Do you know who are similar to Berbasi? I guess you may have some answers in your mind. That you may say that Newman, Lottery, and some other researchers who are also denoted by the green node are also similar to Berbasi, because they are all in the center place of some subgraphs in the whole network. So you may also notice that researcher named Robert. You can say that he is in a near-click subnetwork. So we may also say that other researchers also in the near-click complete network are also similar to Robert. So we named this kind of similarity as structure similarity, which means that the researchers do not need to be connected in one network, and they may also distribute it in the disconnected network. However, the structure characteristic of their are similar, so we name it as a structure similarity. So this is another case. It's about a function of a similar author recommendation in one of the system Aminer in our lab. You can see that for the Professor Han, we recommend some similar authors to him, and these authors all have the many common authors with Professor Han, and they are all close to each other in the network, so we name this similarity as neighborhood similarity. And there are actually many work related to similarity search. And for example, the neighborhood similarity actually includes the set-art SimRank, which treat the nodes to be similar if their neighbors are also similar. And the top sim is a top K version of SimRank, and a rainbow that is a propagation-based method. And the structure similarity actually contains, for example, row sim is an extension of SimRank, which changes the initialization process of SimRank to learn the node to be similar if they distributed in disconnected network. And reflex is a method that constructs a feature vector for each node and then calculates the Euclid distance between the vectors of the nodes. And as we know that when the networks become larger and larger, the efficiency issue has become one of the most important challenges in the similarity search problem. For example, the SimRank, the time complexity is about proportional to the multiplication of the iteration number and the square of the node number and the square of the degree, and similar as random walk start and row sim. So although much effort has been made to improve the efficiency, we notice that most of existing work only focuses on how to improve the efficiency of neighborhood similarity. We are ignoring the other kind of similarity, the structure similarity search. So in this work, actually, our goal is to design a similarity method that is flexible enough that can measure both the neighborhood similarity and the structure similarity efficiently in very large networks. And our method's name is called Panther. So first, to measure the neighborhood similarity, we define a new similarity metric and named it as path similarity. The intuition is that two vertices are similar if they frequently appear on the same path. So the equation is very simple. It's defined as the sum of the weight of the passes that contains any two given vertex and divided by the weight of the weight of all the passes in the graph. And here in this equation, the path is defined as a t-length sequence of vertices. Here we fix the length of the path because we notice that when the nodes who are far from each other actually shares less passes than those who are close to each other. And then big path is the path space in the graph, and the path weight is defined as the multiplication of the transition probability between any two vertices in a path, and the transition probability is the normalization of edge weight. Here is an example. You can see that in this simple example, the vertex 3 is most similar to vertex 1 because vertex 3 shares more passes with vertex 1 than any other vertices in the graph. So to calculate this equation, actually we need to enumerate all the t-passes in the graph, and so obviously it's inefficient. So to improve the efficiency, we propose a method named Panther PS to approximate the path similarity proposed before, and the basic idea is random path sampling. That is, given a graph, we generated R random passes, and then based on the R random passes, recalculate the path similarity. And to generate one path, actually we at each time we uniformly select one node from the graph and then conduct a random walk of t step according to the previously defined transition probability. So actually, the weight of the path is encoded in the random walk process, so that the path similarity can be simplified as the number of passes that contains two nodes. However, we notice that to calculate the simplified path similarity, we still need to enumerate all the passes, random passes, sampled random passes that contain a node. So during the process of generating the random passes, we also build a vertex to parse indexes. So in this way, we can quickly find the parses that contain one node in a time complexity of big O dt, and d is the average degree and t is the path length. Okay, so naturally you may want to ask the question, how many random passes shall we sample to make sure that our approximate path similarity is closer to the exact similarity? So actually we are based on this theory. There are three important input conditions. The first one is a range set defined on a domain, and the range set is defined as a set of sites. And second one is the upper bound of the range set's VC dimension. And the third one is a distribution defined on this domain. So if based on this condition, if we sample S points from according to the distribution phi, and the size of S satisfies this equation, then we can see that S is an optional approximation to the range site and the distribution with a probability of at least 1 minus delta. So the key point is, how can we map our problem to this theory? So according to our problem, we define the domain, the first condition domain, as the path set in this graph. And the range set is defined as the set of the path set that contains any vertices in any two vertices in the graph. And then we can prove that the upper bound of VC dimension of the range set, the defined range set, is like this in equation. And the third condition is we define the distribution as the normalized weight of a path. So according to this definition, actually the path similarity defined before is actually the probability of the path set that contains two given vertices. So in this way, we can plug the three conditions into the previously introduced theory and get the conclusion that if we can sample R random passes according to this equation, then we can guarantee error bound optional with probability at least 1 minus delta. So you can notice that this path similarity random path size R is only related to the path length t, if the error bound and the confidence interval is given. Okay, this is proof about the upper bound of the basic dimension of the range site. You can, I will ignore the details, so if you are interested, please refer to our paper. So the second, if we still want to measure the second similarity, the structure similarity, because it's the situations are totally different from the neighborhood similarity, so we need to define another metric. We name it as vector similarity. The iteration is the probability distributions of a node linking to all other nodes are similar if their topology structures are similar. So the key point is how to represent the probability distributions of a vertex. Our method, the general idea is we use the top D path similarities calculated by Panther PS. Panther PS is previously proposed the method to calculate neighborhood similarity, and use this to represent a vector, and then we can calculate the vector similarity based on the reciprocal of the Euclidean distance of the vector of any given node. And you can see that in this example, the node W in the star network is more similar to the word node W in a near star network than the node V in a tree network, based on our method. Because so this result indicates that our method can actually capture the structure characteristic of a node in a network. So the time complexity of method actually include two parts. The first part is the random path sampling, and the second part is top K similar search for any node. And then for the path VS, we require additional time and spaces to build and query KD tree, and we build the KD tree to improve the efficiency of querying the vector similarities. So experiments, we first evaluated the efficiency performance of a method, and second, we evaluated accuracy performance. And finally, we analyzed some important parameters in our method. So to improve the efficiency performance of method, we use a big tensor following network. Tensor is one of the important macro blogging network in China. And we extract 11 different subnetworks from the whole tensor network, and conduct a method in this network and compare with several baselines. And we can see that our method can approximately achieve about 300 times speed up comparing with the reflex. Actually, reflex is we introduced before is a structure similarity method. And also, our method can scale up to handle a network about 1 billion edges. And secondly, we need to evaluate the accuracy performance of our method. First is Panther PS, because the evaluation about the similar search is not easy task. So we create the ground truth as the number of common neighbors between two vertices, and evaluate how our method and the baselines can approximate to this ground truth. So the score in the y-axis represents the improvements over a random method. And from the result, we can see that our method is as good as the top key version of same rank, because the two methods are both based on the iteration of neighborhood similarity. So they can best approximate the common neighbors. So secondly, we want to evaluate the accuracy performance of Panther PS. Here, we use a task of identity resolution. The assumption is that two authors from the same, the structure characteristic of the same authors in different networks of the same domain are similar to each other. So the experimental settings like this, giving any two co-author network in the same field like KDD and ICDM, if the top key similar vertex from ICDM consists of the query author from KDD, then we say that the method hits a correct instance. And then we evaluate our method in 3 different pair of co-author network and compare them with the reflex and some defined baseline method, like we only evaluate their degree or clustering coefficient. And we can see that our method actually is as good as the performance as good as reflex. And then we would like to investigate how the parameter, the path length t, can affect the performance of method Panther PS. So we change the path length t, and we get results that the performance gets better when t increases, and then the performance becomes stable when t is larger than 5. And finally, we investigate the another important parameter, the error boundary optional in our method in the equation of sampling size. So we actually investigate the parameter in different kinds scale of tensor subnetwork, and to see whether the performance when the performance will become stable when changing the value of the optional. And we get the conclusion that the value of the square of the reciprocal of the optional is almost linearly positively correlated with the number of edges in the network. This indicates that the sampling size of the passes is almost linearly positively correlated with the number of edges in the network. Okay, so to conclusion, we propose a similarity method that can solve two similarity metrics, neighborhood similarity and structure similarity, efficiently. And the theoretical results show that the sampling size is only related to the path length if the error bound and confidence interval is given. And the experimental results show that our method can achieve about 300 times speed up, and in a network with about 5 million edges and 0.5 million vertices. And we can also scale up to a network with about 1 billion edges. And if you are interested in our paper, you can download the code and the data from this link, and thank you.
Thank you. So we have about 3 to 5 minutes to ask questions.
So I've got one question in the analysis. So when you have the VC guarantees, you have a 1 over epsilon squared dependence. Now that means that while for the head of the distributions, your algorithm might work quite well, on the tail, let's say for authors that aren't quite as well known as Jia Han, things may be a little bit less accurate. Do you have any ideas on whether the algorithm is as sensitive to that as your theory says, or whether it actually works a lot better than in theory?
So your question is whether the algorithm is sensitive to the parameter option? No. And
so on your slides, when you have the VC bounds, there's a guarantee which depends on basically 2 log t, and you have a 1 over epsilon squared. So it's about in the middle of your talk.
You mean this equation, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So you have r equals c over epsilon squared and then something else. So epsilon is essentially the accuracy to which you want to estimate this, right?
Yes.
And so this means that if the score overall is very small and you still want to have a good discrimination, you will actually need a lot of terms, right? Then r needs to be large because small epsilon means large r.
Yes.
So is this an effect of the bound? And there could be a tighter bound and the algorithm works a lot better? Or do you observe this in practice?
Yes, if we increase the R, the performance can be better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you. So as I understood, the definition of the similarity is the portion of different paths that go through both vertices. On the other hand, there are so for different vertices in a graph, there are different number of paths which go through these vertices. So I guess that this implies that for different vertices, you will have different values of similarity to other vertices. Is it true? And is it a restriction of your approach, of your definition, or not?
Yes, for different size of a network, the network scale is actually sensitive to the parameter epsilon. So, yeah, so the sample size, path size is actually sensitive to the scale of the network.
I don't say about the scale. So if you consider the same network, there are vertices which are in a dense part of a network. There are vertices which are somewhere on the border, far away from the main part, from the central cluster of vertices. So for vertices which are far along, which have less edges, less arcs, these vertices have less paths which go through these vertices. Yeah.
Can we discuss it later?
Okay.
After the talk?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.